Okay. The U.S.-Israel very special relationship has been a disaster for the American people, including the millions of Jews amongst the American people. I would also argue that it's been a disaster for Israel's long-term interests, but that's outside the scope of this debate. Since we have these very short opening statements, I'm going to stick to two major points here that I think are the costs, or two of the costs associated with this relationship. Number one, the terror wars. Okay. Now, it is just undeniable that Israel has a significant influence on U.S. foreign policy. I'm not making outlandish claims that they run our foreign policy or that there's some secret conspiracy. I'm saying very openly and very publicly, Israeli government and the Israeli lobby have been pushing for the war in Iraq, the war in Libya, the war in Syria, and essentially, aside from Afghanistan, the whole thing. This has been an unmitigated disaster for the United States of America, okay? It has cost us trillions and trillions of dollars, thousands of our bravest young boys' lives, tens of thousands, if you count the ones who blow their brains out at the aftermath of these wars. And at every point of this, Israel has been pushing for these wars. I mean, Netanyahu himself, the longest-serving prime minister in Israeli history, came to America and testified before our Congress in 2002 that we should go overthrow Saddam Hussein because that will have all of these positive reverberations around the region. In the same testimony, he also advocated that we overthrow Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, and he advocated that we go further and overthrow the mullahs in Iran. The entire time, they have been pushing us for more and more of these conflicts that have just been a disaster. Now, I'm sorry, if you look at the costs, and by the way, in these costs, I didn't even mention the millions of innocent people who have been killed in all of these wars. I'm sorry, look at those costs, and you tell me there's a benefit that outweighs that cost right there. You're not going to find it, okay? Number two, and obviously we can get into a lot more of this in the question and answer segment when we have time. Number two, and I think this is a very important one to think about. For the scope of this debate, you don't even have to agree. Global opinion has turned harshly on Israel over this war in Gaza for the last nearly year and a half. Now, you could think that that's right or that that's wrong, but the point to this debate is that we now inherit all of that hatred around the world. And this is not the first time we've inherited this hatred, right? I mean, this really is at the core of the beef that we have with the Muslim world to begin with. It's at the core of why the terrorists hate our guts. You know, under George W. Bush during 9/11, what was the standard neocon line, right? The standard neocon line was that they hate us for our freedom. But even Michael Scheuer, the CIA head of the bin Laden unit, himself admitted that that has nothing to do with why the terrorists hate us. And his exact quote was that only a fool wouldn't know that our relationship with Israel is why we have to fight wars with the Muslims. Now, this hatred that Israel has developed particularly over the last year and a half, where I think people see it all around us. I mean, the sentiment toward Israel has dramatically shifted to a point that would have been unthinkable a few generations ago. America now inherits all of that. We inherit that because it's our money and our weapons and our intelligence support that's allowing Israel to do what they do to Gaza. And everybody involved knows that. Everybody involved knows that this isn't really just Israel's war. This is a war that America is fighting, and it is not in our interest. We have no need to do this. Listen, if you had a friend, and every single night you went out to the bar with your friend, and every single night that friend was encouraging you to get into a fist fight at the bar, and you're just, okay, you're beating these guys up, but you're breaking your hands, and everybody around the bar is hating you now, and by the way, your own marriage is falling apart because you're out at the bar every night getting in fights, the answer is to stop hanging out with that guy. And in this case, the answer is to end the relationship, at least as it is currently working between the U.S. and Israel.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Josh, for your opening statement.